Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Casey and I'm the designer behind Pattern Scout. Today I'm going to be doing a sew along for my newest pattern, the Mia dress. So come on in. The Mia dress comes in US sizes 0 through 30 with B, C, and D cup sizing options so that you can get a better fit in the bust. And the recommended fabrics for this dress are going to be a really stretchy knit. So rib knits are going to be great, cotton spandex, brushed poly spandex, sweater knits are going to be great as long as they have a good amount of stretch, and you want at least 50% stretch in the horizontal direction for the best results. This dress features a mock turtleneck and raglan sleeves, which are actually one of my favorite types of sleeves to make because they're so easy to sew. And it also has a fit and flare skirt, so you get a little bit of movement down at the bottom, and the hem is a high-low hem. So the back of the hem is a little bit lower than the front of the hem, and it's kind of a midi length. I've included a link to the pattern down in the video description so that you can get more details about this pattern, including how much fabric yardage you're going to need for your size. And the first thing that we want to do is cut our fabric. So the fabric that I'm going to be using for this project is I think it's like a jacquard knit, has kind of a cable knit texture to it, but it is a sweater net. It's very stretchy and it's a little bit more on the heavy side of knits, but you could really use so many different weights of knits. The one thing you'll probably want to check is just to make sure that if you're using something that's a little bit on the thin side, that it's not too see-through. But I did make a green version out of a lightweight rib knit and it turned out great, and you can't see through it. I don't think. I've worn it several times. So you really do have a lot of options for the types of knit fabric that you can use for this as long as it's stretchy. And in case anybody is wondering, the top that I am wearing today is a top that I made. It is the Romie top from Seamwork. I made this top in my last video, and I'll put a link to this top in the video description, the pattern for this top in the video description. So be sure to check that out. The other day when I filmed this sew along, I filmed the entire thing using a black fabric, and the dress turned out great. However, yesterday when I sat down to edit some of that footage, every time I was trying to show the steps of putting this thing together, it was like looking into a black void. You could not see it. So I decided to remake some parts of the video using a lighter fabric that shows up a little bit better. But I didn't want to sew a whole other dress because I already have a dress. Actually, I have two dresses now from this pattern. So I've decided to make a little pattern hack in the middle of this video for a shirt. So the pattern only comes with one version, just a dress. This is really easy to hack into a shirt actually. So you can just attach the skirt to the bodice and cut both pieces on the fold, both the front and the back on the fold. I cut mine off about 4 inches below the waist here. And then I also, for the back bodice, just folded out that little bit of shaping over the bum on the skirt so that it's just a basically straight line so I can cut this on the fold. And then I also just folded out that little point there so that this seam edge is straight at the bottom. That will help with turning the hem on the last step. I did the same thing for the front bodice here. And then that's what my two bodice pieces look like. And I've already got the pieces cut out, and I'm going to show you how to put the bodice together with the white fabric, and then I'll show you how to attach the skirt, which is actually pretty straightforward at the end with the black fabric. Sorry if that's confusing at all, but I just wanted to make sure you guys could see all the steps pretty clearly in the video. And bonus, you can use these skirt pieces with my comfy tee and my Bridget tee because they're all kind of based on the same block. Anyway, here we go. Once we have all of our pieces cut, the first step is going to be to sew the back bodice to the front bodice, right sides together along the side seams. If you're sewing the C cup or the D cup, you'll notice that there is a curve along the edge, and you'll have to ease in the edge of the front bodice to the edge of the back bodice to make it fit. This is because this acts as kind of a built-in dart at the side seam to provide a little extra ease at the bust for those sizes. Then I will serge this on the serger. I'm gonna be putting this whole thing together with my serger. You can use a zigzag stitch on a regular sewing machine if you don't have a serger. Next, we'll take the sleeve and fold it in half right sides together, aligning the sleeve seam, and sew that on the serger as well. You do this for both sleeves. So now I have the bodice pieces sewn together at the side seams. I'm going to leave this turned wrong side out. Lay that on the table here. I'm going to take my sleeves and turn them right side out. And then I'll insert this sleeve into the bodice, aligning the side seam and the notches on the front and back of the sleeve and the bodice. Another way is to attach the sleeve to both the front and the back bodice first, and then sew the side seam of both the sleeve and the bodice at the same time. So either way will work for this pattern. If you prefer the other method, that works as well too. Next, we'll take the collar piece and fold that in half, right sides together, and match up the seam, and then sew that on the serger. And then once we have that sewn, I'm just going to fold that in half and notch the center here. So I'll just cut a little notch right there, making sure not to clip through the stitching. And then that way, when we fold the collar in half on itself, we can flip those seam allowances in opposite directions to reduce the bulk. And that just helps it lay a little bit more flat. And this will be the back seam of the collar. And then we can attach the collar to the bodice. So I'm actually going to turn the bodice wrong side out again, and I will insert the collar into the neckline, and I'll align the seam of the collar with the double notches on the back of the neckline here. So there's those double notches on the back neckline. And then I've got a notch on the front of the neckline and the collar. So I'll align those. That marks the center front, and I'll distribute that collar around the neckline, and I'll just have to stretch it to kind of make it fit. I'm gonna have to ease that collar into the neckline. So I'll pin all that all the way around and serge it on my serger. This is probably the most finicky part of this whole project, just getting this collar in, but it's really not that bad. Just kind of take your time with it, and it helps to sew with the collar on top and the bodice on the bottom. And this is actually a good time to try on the bodice and see if you like the fit, especially with the sleeves. I will say I leave a little bit of fitting ease in the sleeves. I'm always nervous to make those too tight and uncomfortable, so I do leave a little bit of fitting ease in those. And if you find that you need to make the sleeve a little bit slimmer, you can just sew from the hem of the sleeve up over the armpit and connect it back to the bodice. Just something to note, if you find the sleeves are a little bit loose, I had a couple people in testing that noticed this too, but it is actually pretty easy to take out that ease if you don't need it. I also get questions pretty often about the type of iron that I have. It is a Shark Professional 1600 watt. I don't like this iron though. I have needed a new iron for like pretty much the whole time I've had this iron, so I don't recommend it. Next, I'll put the two back skirt pieces right sides together, making sure to align that back notch, the double notch on the back, and then I will sew that seam on my serger. Then I will open up the back skirt, and I'm gonna press that seam allowance to one side. And a lot of times too, when you're serging knits, if you find that the seam gets kind of wavy, you can always just hit it with an iron to kind of, press it and shrink it back into place. Then I will lay the back skirt right side facing up, and I will lay the front skirt on top of that, right sides together, and sew the side seams. There are also notches on the skirt pieces at the side seam about halfway down to help matching up the side seams. So I'm gonna leave the skirt wrong side out, and I'm gonna have the top right side out, and I want to make sure that I have the front to the front and the back to the back, and I'm gonna insert the top inside of the skirt and align the waistline seam. Make sure those sleeves are out of the way too. And I'll just make sure that the side seams are aligned. Again, flipping those seam allowances in opposite directions helps to kind of pick it up and give it a good shake. And then I will just pin that around the perimeter of the waist seam, sew it with the serger again, and then the last thing we'll have left to do is hemming. Now for the sleeve hems, I'm just gonna turn up the end by a 1/2 inch. I'm not gonna worry about doing any special finishing on the raw edge because it's probably not gonna fray since this is a knit. So I'll turn that under by a 1/2 inch and then just zigzag stitch around that on a regular sewing machine. And I'll do the same thing for the skirt hem. Okay, that wraps up the Mia sew along. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. And if you have already bought the pattern, I just want to thank you so much. Right now, as of filming this, the pattern is on sale. So I put a link in the description to the pattern if you want to get it for yourself. On sale right now. The sale will go into the end of February, so we've got a few more days. I can't believe it's almost March. But anyway, I've really been loving this dress and now shirt that I have. A turtleneck is just so versatile, and one of the pieces of inspiration that I had in my own closet for this dress is something that I've actually been wanting to make for a really long time. It's a black turtleneck. I've probably had that turtleneck since like the early 2000s, so about 20 years or more. I think at the time it cost me about $40 for that turtleneck, and it felt like such a splurge. I mean, I was fresh out of high school, probably in college, didn't have a lot of money, and so I dropped $40 on this turtleneck that fits so well. It still looks great. I still wear it all the time, and the raglan style definitely was inspired by that original turtleneck that I've had in my closet for decades, literally decades, which blows my mind. I can't believe it's not falling apart, but it's not. So this sweater knit is a little bit on the heavy side for knits, and for that reason, the tension on my serger probably caused a little bit of waving in the seams. That will eventually kind of work itself out, but I think I could have adjusted the tension a little bit to avoid that. And actually, Paula Jean over at June Made was one of my testers for this pattern, and she also has a video that she just posted talking about her experience with the pattern, and she kind of addressed some of those issues if you want some tips on how to deal with this fabric, because she actually used the same fabric. I think hers was in a navy. I'll put a link to her channel down in the description below this video. And then of course I have the green rib knit version that I have really been loving. I also recently bought a suede little moto jacket secondhand on Poshmark, and it looks so good layered over these dresses. Let me show you real quick. It's been so cold. Like I've had to wear my like puffy jackets and just really layer up. But today it actually feels like spring outside. It's really nice. But man, I just love this moto jacket worn over a turtleneck or a turtleneck dress. I think it is just so chic, and I've worn it over the green one. I actually wore it on my husband and I's anniversary dinner that we went on. So anyway, I really, really love this combo a lot. Let me take this off. It's like really hot today. Actually, it's not hot. I mean, it's hot by Michigan standards for a winter day in the middle of February. It feels like spring outside. And I might be a little quiet here on the Pattern Scout YouTube channel because my husband and I are working on the bathroom in our basement, which I'll be sharing on my other channel along with other home renovation type stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, be sure to check that out as well. Again, links are all in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.